Alrighty, greetings everyone. Thank you for coming to the Citywide Council for District 75's Outreach Committee. My name is Christy Angel. I am the president for the Citywide Council for District 75. Tonight we do have as a facilitator Mrs. Robin Ann McGonigal. Some of you may know Robin Ann very well. She works with our council and helping our parents and support group regularly. This meeting will have interpretation in Spanish, Mandarin, and Bangla. At this moment, we'd like to give the floor over to the Spanish interpreters to give your instructions.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Por favor, si ustedes desean escuchar la conferencia en español, el número a marcar desde su celular es el número 347-966-4114, seguido del código o del código de la conferencia, el ID de la conferencia, el cual es el número 152-762-814, seguido del teclado numeral. Solamente se les pide que mantengan los micrófonos en modo de silencio para evitar interferencia de sonido. Repito la información una vez más. El número a marcar para escuchar la conferencia en español es el número 347-966-4114, seguido del ID de la conferencia, el número 152-762-814, seguido de la tecla numeral. Lo pueden ver en el chat también. Gracias.
Thank you so much. May we have our Mandarin instructions. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a little discombobulated.
各位家长下午好。那如果您需要听中文、国语、普通话的同声传译，那请您打电话给347-966-4116，然后请您输入会议号码 ID 382-941-965，井号键。那再说一次，电话号码是347-966-4114，请输入会议号码 ID 382-941-965，井号键。请您把您的电脑或者电话静音，这样不影响到传译的工作，也避免影响到其他听众。谢谢。The announcement up completed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bangla, you have the floor to give your instructions.
থ্যাংক ইউ। শুভ সন্ধ্যা সবাইকে। আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আজকে বাংলা দোভাষীর সাহায্যের জন্য আপনারা দয়া করে ডায়াল করুন 347-966-4114 নম্বরটিতে, এবং আমি আবার বলছি নাম্বারটি হলো 347-966-4114। তারপর একটা আইডি চা হবে, সেটা হলো 692-971-401 এবং হ্যাশ চিহ্নটি চাপুন। আমি আবার বলছি আইডিটি হলো 692-971-401, হ্যাশট্যাগ চিহ্নটি চাপুন। ধন্যবাদ। Bengali announcement has been concluded.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Robin Ann, thank you for your patience. Parents, thank you for your patience. At this point, I am going to zip it and hand it over to Ms. McGonigal to give us some good resources and tools and routines to get out of some of this stress and to support this emotional regulation. Robin Ann, thank you once again for joining us and for helping us in this journey.
Of course. Thank you so much, Christy. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about back to school transitions. I know we're in October, but we're still feeling the back to school stress. So tonight, hopefully we can talk about building routines, reduce your stress as well as your children's, as well as some emotion regulation for all of us, which is definitely helpful. Okay, so what is the word? What one word? I want you all to think about this. So it's one word that comes to mind when you describe the start of school. How does it feel in your home? How does it feel for you, for your family, for your child? Some families when I've worked with over the years, have said the word overwhelmed. They feel very overwhelmed. There's too much to prepare for. Every morning feels like a battle just to get out the door. Anxious, worried, another feeling that you might be feeling. What if they get overwhelmed, or if they shut down going to school? What happens if they're not doing well in school? What happens if I'm overwhelmed as a parent? Some parents are feeling some guilt. I feel bad, then I'm relieved to have them back at school. Some parents have a lot of guilt surrounding that, because sometimes there is a little bit of a relief. Once they're back in a different routine, they're out of the house, other adults are helping out with them at this point. But there's some guilt, and we'll talk about how to regulate that as well. Some parents have talked about sadness, some grief on their part. They're not excited like the other kids. So that makes some parents sad. Some children are really excited to start school. Some children, most of our children are not. They're really anxious, frustrated, maybe resistant. There's a lot of frustration across the board, usually in the home. Some parents have asked me, well, why does everything have to be so hard for us? Why does my child have to struggle? Why does every morning getting to school have to be an issue? And then there's the mental exhaustion, which we all feel as parents. I've had a few parents quote, my brain is running constantly trying to stay on top of everything. The idea of one thing after another, never having that mental break is beyond exhausting. And then the love and the determination that we feel for our children. The idea of no matter how hard it is, I'll keep going. I'll keep showing up for my children. No matter how exhausted I get, no matter how tired, I'm always going to be there. All right, so transitioning back to school is seen as a season of overwhelm and as well as opportunity. More often than not, as families, we see this, especially as the parents, we see it as an overwhelming experience for us, and our children do as well. I'd like to try to flip that this evening and hopefully see more opportunity in this. So when we talk about back to school transitions, I want to focus tonight on affirmations. So the idea that every child's brain and body operates uniquely. And we're going to take that as an opportunity to get closer to our child, to connect with our children. Another core value, empowerment. I want to try to hopefully empower all of you more than you already are empowered. And think about that you're the expert of your child. You know what's best for your child. The schools have an idea, but in the end, it's really you as the guardian. And the practicality of it all. Strategies that are realistic, adaptable, and that come from a strength-based approach, which we talk about. What's your strength as a parent? What's your child's strength? And how does that work together to help this transition back to school be easier? Connection. I'm a true believer. I'm a parent myself. Connection is everything. So when we connect with our children and they understand us, we understand them, it definitely helps the overwhelm and the transitioning back to school. So really, what are transitions? And tonight, my approach is more about explaining what they are for your child as well as what they are for you. So transitions, as we all know, are the changes between activities, between settings, between routines. So there's any change that happens in a child's life, our lives, will be considered a transition. So I provide some examples. Tonight, we're focusing on going home, from home to school and then back from school to home and just starting the new school year. But there's transitions throughout a child's whole day. Ending playtime, starting homework, coming home from school, maybe taking a break, having a snack, then starting homework. So every time we start and stop and stop and start, we're starting a new transition. And what's also happening is we're starting a new revelation in our nervous system, in our children's nervous system. So next question, I'm sure most of you are maybe have all this information, but it's a good refresher. Why transitions are so difficult for children? Children may experience transitions as threatening, disorienting, or overwhelming. I work with a lot of families, and a lot of the children display these three all the time. So to give you a little background on what's going on for your child during these transitions, especially back to school, there's an executive functioning challenge. So the executive functioning part of the brain is a part of the brain that's not developed in children just yet. It's not developed well into their young adulthood. So we're asking children to use this part of the brain that's underdeveloped, but this is the part of the brain that helps them start and stop tasks without feeling threatened, without being overwhelmed or feeling disoriented. If they don't have that developed, they become challenging at these times for us. This part of the brain also helps us adapt to the change more frequently and more relaxed and not overwhelmed. Again, children have a difficult time leaving preferred activities because it seems like a disorientation for them. It seems overwhelming. Maybe using their iPad, maybe playing is much safer than transitioning to school. Maybe just getting up in the morning is just a whole big transition for them. And now we're asking them to get ready, get dressed, hurry up, right? And then get to school. And school sometimes is extremely overwhelming, as we know, for our children. Another thing that happens for our children when they're transitioning, especially to school, sensory processing. There's tons of differences, and you all know that as parents. But some children often experience the world more intensely, and most of our children do. So what this might look like is them moving into a louder or brighter environment like school can be very overstimulating for their nervous system. So their nervous system sees it as a threat. And then they start to have survival behavior. A lot of behavior that they're going to display to us, especially with transitions, will be survival behavior. It's not them being defiant. It's not them pushing our buttons, even though it looks like that, feels like that to us. But it really is just the overstimulation of the nervous system, recognizing this as a threat and acting accordingly to keep the child safe. So another transition for sensory would be taking off shoes and jackets, putting jackets on, putting shoes on, changing locations also activates sensory discomfort. So sounds, smells, taste, anything like that will activate a child's nervous system and think of it as a threat. Being rushed increases sensory dysregulation. We're all rushing in the morning, no matter how well planned we are. But the minute we start to rush, we rush our children, and then the children's sensory is off. It becomes dysregulated and it's offline. So think of it as the brain being hijacked, as well as the nervous system being hijacked. So now a child has to figure out, how do I do all of this and still feel threatened? Most children will probably shut down, or their behavior will escalate and be more resistant. Need for predictability and routine. Very difficult when we're transitioning, for children in particular, that they have predictable and everything's routine. We try to keep the routines, I know, as parents, but it's not always easy to do. Something always flips and turns us around. So many children, especially children with diverse needs, rely on sameness to feel safe. So if one slight thing is off in the routine for the morning, moving from home to school, their whole nervous system is saying, whoop, this isn't safe. What's happening? And that's why we see a lot of the behaviors that we're seeing and we're struggling with as parents. So how this affects the transitions in the morning: an unannounced change, maybe new teacher, maybe their book was left at home and they're in the car now, or maybe they had to take a different car, or maybe the jacket they usually wear wasn't ready for them, or it was lost. We couldn't find it in the morning. Those could cause anxiety or meltdowns. Children could shut down, or we can see what we call tantrums. I'm sure all of you have experienced one of those, if not all. Flexibility is not a skill that can easily push through. We ask children to kind of just move through it. Come on, get over it, move faster. Most children cannot do that. It's not how their nervous system is developed. So it's easier for us, believe it or not, to scaffold. And scaffolding simply is to support the child where they are in the moment with their emotions and help de-escalate. And once we de-escalate them, then it's easier for them to move through the transition and help us, cooperate with us to move them from home to school. Even positive changes sometimes activate a child in a negative way. And that's why parents really get confused. Well, today you're having a holiday party at school, or you're going on a field trip. Why are you giving me so much trouble? Because that's something different. Even though it seems like something fun, it's still not the same predictable routine. So it does throw children off. Communication differences. Transitions always cause this for children. So some children have challenges with communicating or alternate communication capacities. So some examples: they may not be able to express why they're upset. So this is where adults kind of do the wrong thing sometimes. They make the wrong choices and they ask children, why are you upset? The constant interrogation, what's making you upset? It's a great question for someone who's not escalated, but her child who's already feeling overwhelmed and dysregulated and unsafe. That question, why, that one word just puts up their defenses. And it's so hard for them. Even if they have the word somewhere in them, it's almost impossible for them to articulate that, to speak it to us. The best thing to do in those moments is to just keep your child feeling safe. You're safe, I'm here with you, and help them de-escalate. And then together, when we co-regulate with our children, we can help our children how to understand the why of what's happening for them. Transitions may be confusing if not explained visually or concretely. A lot of times we use words to translate things to children, and while sometimes they understand that, more often than not, it doesn't compute in their brain. They still need some processing time. So showing them visual or very, very concise, short answers or explanations works much better than talking at children. They may use behaviors: screaming, running away, hitting, hiding. Keep in mind, every behavior our child has, especially the ones that we're not particularly fond of, are all communication. And those behaviors, running, screaming, yelling, hitting, biting, those are communications usually telling us our child are feeling fearful. They're feeling scared, frustrated, unsafe. And in those moments, they're communicating to us that I need you. I need you to be the safe person for me to help me through this scary time. Emotion regulation and anxiety. Transitions are difficult for this because, again, they're seeing things as a threat, which causes them to feel anxious, which causes them to act out in ways that aren't helpful for us to get them out the door. So transitions are full of unknowns. Even though no matter how predictable we can be with our routines, children know that there's always something that might pop up. Maybe something, there'll be traffic, child will be late for school. Maybe one day they'll go to school and their friend won't be there. Or maybe they are not ready for a test. Whatever the case may be, there's too many unknowns, and that makes them feel unsafe. So if their bodies feel unsafe or they think their environment feels unsafe, it's very, very difficult for children not to feel anxious during transitions. So anxiety builds anticipation even the night before. So this is why a lot of times your child will do everything to stay up at night. I'm thirsty. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm hungry. Please read me another story. They seem like they're stalling because they are. The minute they go to bed and you close the door and you say goodnight, I love you, they know the next day is full of unknowns. It's full of anxiety. Again, they're probably not able to express this to you, but their bodies are expressing to you through their behavior. Kids may obsessively ask questions. What if it rains? What if I can't find my class? What if? That's the child's anxiety coming out. Children who ask a lot of questions typically are showing their anxiety, their stress level to us. They may seem fine all day, then explode after school. This is called delayed dysregulation. So a lot of our children get through the day, survive the day, and then when they come home, they just let it all out. They explode, and we are the targets. But as parents, we have to hold that and let them know that it's a safe place to do that because they're keeping it together all day, which is exhausting for them. And then when they come home, they're able to expel it on us. Again, it's not to upset us. It's not to hurt our feelings. If we can take a step back and not take it personally, we can see through that and see that what they're communicating is, I've had such a hard day, and this has been terrible for my body, terrible for my mind. I just need you to let me let it out and keep me safe. And that's what I'm sure all of you do. Okay, so understanding these transitions for your child's brain, as well as your brain. Sometimes our brains, even as adults, go through the same thing that our children are going through. So the transition brain impacts effective functioning, like I had said, decision-making, planning, moving from one activity to the other, but it also causes sleep disruption, emotional overload, which is those emotional meltdowns, tantrums that you might see. For your child's brain, transitions aren't just switching from task to task, like you came home from work or you came home from your day doing something and now you're sitting at this support group. That children's brains don't work that way. Neurologically, these are called stress events for children. So their nervous system gets activated. So these could be acute, which means they're smaller, they come in spurts, or they can be chronic, which happens all the time. Now, we do see many, many children at all ages have chronic stress responses going back to school. From September, probably to even November, you'll see these stress responses and these behaviors until their nervous system regulates back into the school environment. These events can disrupt normal brain function, triggering abnormal nerve activity, which leaves the child's nervous system feeling threatened. That's why you see heightened, intense emotions, heightened, intense behavior that seems outlandish to you and frustrating, but it's because the nervous system is so dysregulated about the switching. Even though they've been switching for now, it's almost a month and a half, it doesn't matter. Some children take months and months of time for their nervous system to feel safe in their school environment. When asked to move from one thing to another, like home or school, play or cleanup time, their brain perceives this as an unsafe, unpredictable, overwhelming demand, which becomes a threat for them. We have mirror neurons in us that can help them through these threatening moments. So how children catch our stress or how children de-escalate from stress happens always because of the adult that they're with, whether it's you at home or even the school teachers, the educators. So parent stress affects child stress. These are those mirror neurons. So the idea of co-regulating. Your child is having a really difficult time in the morning. They're very heightened. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're crying. We keep ourselves calm. If we keep our nervous system calm, it will de-escalate. It will calm the child's nervous system. Not 100%. I wish that was the case. That's not how it works, but it will calm them slightly. And even more so, the calmer we become and the more we help them regulate those emotions. When we get heightened, because we're stressed, we have to get to work, we have to get out the door, we have to get into school on time. We get very nervous and very stressed. Now the child will get more stressed. And then how we go back and forth. And now all of us are here, and now no one's getting anywhere on time. So that's the idea of keeping us stressed. So we talk about self-regulating for guardians. Parents have to self-regulate in order to help our children regulate. So in children, the system is highly active, especially in infancy and early childhood, but we're also seeing this in our adolescence, in our mid-childhood years. Children's nervous system, remember, are still developing. It's our job to help that nervous system develop in a very healthy manner. When a parent is stressed, the child mirror neurons fire in response. So they're activated in response to us. So again, keep in mind, if you keep calm, your child is more likely to stay calm or at least de-escalate in that moment due to you being so co-regulating. Children cannot self-regulate. So that's something that a lot of guardians even think that a 10 or 12-year-old can self-regulate. That's just not the case. That's not how their nervous system works, regardless if they have a diverse need or not. Children need co-regulation, which means us regulating with them as parents, all the way up into their young adult years. Think about it. Even as adults, we need someone sometimes to help regulate us when we're really angry, we're really sad, even sometimes when we're really happy. It's nice to have another person kind of help regulate your emotions with you and mirror those. So a calm guardian helps a child's nervous system return to a regulated, balanced state, and an overwhelmed or dysregulated parent, unintentionally, we amplify our child's stress level. So just think about holding a child if that's appropriate for your child. Some children don't like to be held, so just sitting next to them and near them can help them calm down. Your nervous system, your voice, how you speak with them. I also talk about breathing. I've done a few workshops with all of you with breathing. We'll talk quickly today, but just even if you just regulate your breathing, if you are calming yourself down, your child will emulate after that. Your child will mirror that. They'll mimic that, and then they'll begin to calm down. Children don't need perfect parents, so please remember that. I think most parents, we all get really stressed out because we just want to do the very best for our children. But that doesn't mean you have to be perfect, because there's no such thing. What they really need is for you to be present in that moment. No matter how late we are for work, I know sometimes that's not an option, or how late they are for school, but if we can get in that moment with them, we can more often than not calm them down, help them smooth transition, and then everyone can get where they need to be on time. It's all about connecting with our children in that moment and helping them regulate. So reflection question. So what was one thing that kind of set you off in the morning, or your child off in the morning? I want you to kind of think about what that might look like for you, and how you perceive that your child being set off in the moment, and how you can maybe regulate yourself in order to regulate your child. So these are some kind of like parent moments that I'd like you to think about, because we all have these moments when we're transitioning, especially when we're all stressed out in the morning trying to get to work and school, or just to start our day. The alarm system, we all have it. Our alarm systems go off. The brain says, uh-oh, something is changing. For children, even though they know the change is leaving family, safe environment to going to school, it doesn't matter. It's still a change. And if there's still too many unknowns. So even if the change seems small to you, to the child's brain, it's huge usually. Again, this is not aid. It doesn't matter. Any child can feel this way. What happens here is this sets the fight, flight, or freeze response off. So fight would look like a child screaming and yelling, and maybe hitting you, maybe biting you, throwing things at you because they refuse to get into the car to go to school or get on the bus. Maybe they run away. Maybe they hide under their bed. Maybe they lock themselves in the bathroom. So these are responses to feeling threatened. These are survival behaviors. So if you can look at it through that lens, hopefully it will help you de-escalate yourself first, so you can understand your child's needs a little bit better. And then some children just freeze. They just sit there, they melt, they roll up into a ball, and they will not move. You cannot move them. You physically have to remove them, put them on the bus, put them in the car. They refuse to move at all. Again, these are survival behaviors, not behaviors to upset you. So the thinking brain goes offline at this point. So think about it. So whatever kind of reasoning they had, this is why some parents say, well, yesterday they were fine. They got on the bus and went to school, but today they gave me such a difficult time. There's no rhyme or reason to that. Something in the moment just went offline and your child's brain said, okay, this is danger. This is scary. And all logic shuts down. So even though they know they love their teacher, they love their friends, they like going to school, it doesn't matter sometimes in that moment. All of that goes out of their brain and their nervous system takes over and says, threat. That's it. And what are you going to do with that threat? So things like saying, just calm down, stop crying, all that does is reactivates the nervous system that there is a threat. So it's a validation. So instead of saying things like that, we can say things, I see that you're very upset. I see that you're very upset by leaving me, or you don't want to go to school because you're scared. If we validate those emotions, then the body puts the brain back online. And now the child can start to realize that maybe school is safer than they're feeling like in that moment, because now you've connected with them and you're providing a safe environment for their body to feel safe and calm down. And hopefully the logic that they do have, even the smaller children, to go back online. The sensory system may be flooded. So keep in mind, children, especially children with diverse needs, have their senses are overflowing all the time. They're heightened all the time. They're constantly looking for danger. So the brain struggles to manage all this input. So think about it. You're going from different lights, different sounds, different temperatures, different textures. There's so much that's different from movement to movement, from transition to transition. They're going from their home to the bus, to the car, to the classroom. It's way too much sometimes and very quickly. So during these transitions, the system can get very overwhelmed. So you might see things like your children lashing out, yelling, screaming, biting, covering their ears is a big one. A lot of children refuse to move because they're just so paralyzed by the flood of emotions and the flood of sensing that they really just cannot move, because for them, moving would make it worse. So again, just understanding that the behavior is probably a nervous system reaction will definitely help in these moments. Processing time. We all need it. Children need it much more than we do. So just keep in those moments. Take some deep breaths yourselves, ground yourself in the moment, try to keep yourself calm, and remember that your child's brain has just been hijacked. It literally has been hijacked. There's like a jam. If you think of kind of like jamming something into, a wheel and it doesn't turn anymore, that's exactly what's happening for the child's brain. It just stops functioning the way it used to. So the extra time allows it to come back, and slowly the child will have that extra processing time, and the extra cues from you, especially visual, will help the child move forward and hopefully transition a little easier the next time, or even in the moment that you're with them. Remember also, when children are heightened in this state, keep your instructions simple, very clear. If you need them to get their shoes on, just say shoes on. Make it very, very simple. Sometimes even helping them with it, even though I know it's not what we want to do all the time. But again, we have to go where the children are in those moments. It makes it easier for everybody else. How stress transition shows up in children. So think about regressive behaviors. You might say, my child hasn't had a tantrum in years. Why now? Something might be going on at school. The transition from you to the school just might be harder for some reason for this year. We see a lot of bedwetting. We see a lot of regressive behaviors where they were maybe 2 or 3 years ago, even a few months ago. All of these could be signs that child is struggling with transition. Maybe not in the moment, you're not seeing that struggle, but their nervous system is holding it in, and we're seeing it at night, or we're seeing it weeks later. So just some things to look for. Resistance or withdrawal from events. Maybe they used to love to go to the park, and all of a sudden they don't want to go anymore. They're resistant. Maybe birthday parties were fun, and now they don't want to go. These are cues and signs for us to just be curious about what's going on for a child. Typically, these are signs that children struggle with transitions. Most of the time it's school to home, home to school. Sometimes it's just transitions in general become much more overwhelming as children get older. Physical symptoms. I'm sure all of your children have something, right? All of our little ones and our older ones have headaches, stomach aches, back aches, something's aching, something's hurting. Again, the body is telling us that something's wrong. Please listen. It's our job as parents to do so. Children may become more clingy or resistant to any change, even something that they would typically enjoy, because you are the safe people. You are the ones that keep them feeling safe and help regulate their nervous system. So they would only need you more and more when they're struggling. Repeated meltdowns and specific transition points. So think about it, try to pattern this. I'm sure most of you have done this. If you notice that trying to get them on the bus seems to trigger them and activates them, see if it's every day, or see if it's maybe a certain bus driver or a certain child on the bus. If we pattern things out when these meltdowns are occurring, we might be able to figure out what helps children and help children figure out what's struggling for them. Sometimes it's just the time of year, believe it or not. But other times it's some small little thing. Maybe the bus changed the smell in the bus. They put new seats on there, new covers, or maybe the classroom is different. Maybe they have a class pet. A million different reasons. Increased stimming or rigid behavior. We see this a lot in children because, again, their nervous system is trying to regulate. There's too much going on, and the only way it can regulate itself is by increasing the stimming or the rigid behavior, because that's the only control the child has in those moments. Tons of sleep disruptions. Sometimes children sleep too much. Sometimes they don't sleep at all. We see insomnia, where children are up for hours and hours and hours, and maybe if they're lucky, they get about an hour of sleep per night. And there are some aggressive behaviors that could come up, avoidance of school appointments, things like that. So anxiety in children may be misunderstood as defiance, aggression, disinterest, when it's really just a stress response. So keep in mind it's a survival response. This is important for you to know so you can kind of look through it through a different lens to understand it, that they're not being aggressive with you. Behaviorally they are, but emotionally they're trying to tell you that I need you. I'm having a hard time here. This is really good for educators, for teachers to know, for the school staff to know, the children's providers to know, to really educate them as well, because some of them know this, but a lot of them actually don't know that a child's defiance or their aggression in school could really be because they're having transition anxiety. And transition anxiety is a phrase that many people do not know. And unfortunately, we don't know this, and we aren't helping children the way we need to. Sensory overload and shutdown. Things I have mentioned before, so they hide under tables. This could happen at school as well. So it's good to have that homeschool connection. This is how they're behaving at home, and this is how they're behaving at school. How can we connect and help the child transition in an easier manner? The aggressive behavior. Sometimes it's towards other children. More often than not, it's towards themselves or people they feel closest to, usually us as parents. Again, if we try to pull ourselves out of it, which is super hard, and not take it personally and understand, okay, so I'm the safe person, so they can get their energy out of their nervous system with me. How can we do this in a way that's safer for everybody? But to understand that this is a release that's necessary. In order for a child in particular to calm their nervous system, they have to release the energy somehow. And a lot of children more often than not will become aggressive. And it's our way of the child helping the child co-regulate. And when we do that, we can have them maybe punch a punching bag. They can rip paper. There's other safer ways that they can get that aggressive energy out as far as hurting someone or themselves. Repetitive speech or questions, as we talked about. In the transition anxiety idea, this is called the rambling stage, or the rumbling stage, is both. So it's rumble and tumble sometimes it's called. This is where children seem very obsessed and they're compulsively asking questions and they follow you around and they just don't stop. That's another way that children get aggression and nervous energy out, especially if they're having anxiety. That's their way of getting it out. Instead of hitting or throwing a tantrum, they're constantly talking, constantly asking questions. A lot of echolale happens here as well. You'll hear a lot of time they're repeating phrases that you may have said, or another child or somebody at school, a teacher has said, and they say it over and over and over. All these are just ways of regulating and nurturing the nervous system. We clearly don't want the child to be doing that all the time because it becomes an issue with their personal relationships. So a way of doing that as well is grounding them, having them in the moment. If it's appropriate, hugging them. getting some movement in there, jumping jacks, running around, going out for a walk, going to the playground, that will help alleviate some of this rumble and tumble type of stage. Refusal or avoidance. This might not just be refusal for school, so keep that in mind. Typically, when a child has transition anxiety about school, you can see this in other areas, and it's misseen. It's just seen that the child has a huge behavior, they just don't want to do anything anymore. They're just being outright defiant. That's usually not the case. It's usually that the energy, again, is stuck in the nervous system, and they can't release it because they have to go to school. We all know that. But now they can control it in some way. They don't have to go to karate class. They don't have to go to chess club. They might not want to go to the playground. So that's the way that they try to resist and refuse to do these things to control some of the transition anxiety. Again, those avoidance behaviors are trying to calm the nervous system down. Where we can step in is co-regulating, talking to them about it. The emotion coaching idea is like explaining, well, you seem very stressed, you seem very anxious, very nervous. And then the child learns those words, and you're able to help the child find coping skills that are more adaptive, more healthy for them. Somatic complaints. Somatic really just means the body. What are they complaining about? Their headache, their stomach. Children sometimes will come up with very interesting ways to complain about something physical to let you know that their environment is not feeling safe, that they're not feeling safe in their bodies. So complaining about food textures, that could be something neurodivergent, but it also could be a way of them saying, you know what, today it's too hot in the house, or the classroom's too hot, or my clothes feel uncomfortable. The nervous system is constantly telling them, you have to tell your parents something. And maybe now they're resorting to the temperature. Maybe they're resorting to the clothing that they're wearing. So if something seems out of the ordinary for your child's behavior, it is definitely a sign that this could be transition anxiety. So you might want to reach out to someone and get more help. And I'm always happy to help. Increased stimming, as we talked about. But this is also can look like pacing, jumping around. A lot of times teachers will report children are hyperactive in the classroom, and maybe they are. But typically hyperactivity, especially if a child has transition anxiety, is a form of getting that nervous energy out, getting the anxiety energy out. So it's something to think about. If your child's jumping around the house a lot, or they're jumping around the yard, or the parents are talking, the teachers are talking about them jumping around in the classroom, constantly moving and shaking in their chair. Again, you might want to revisit, well, are they okay with transitions in school? Are they okay with transitioning from home to school? Because transition anxiety comes out in a variety of ways physically for children. Another way of them controlling this anxiety, very rigid thinking. These are the children who now are so rigid in the rule following that everyone is following the rules. And if someone doesn't follow the rules, they'll call them out on that. Unfortunately, children call them tattletales. It does cause some issues in school socially. So we really want to be more aware of this as well, because this is how a child kind of focuses on somebody else in order to control their anxiety. They are not trying to be troublemakers. They're just really trying to control and regulate their own nervous system. So a lot of times they'll move forward with rules to the point where someone does not follow the rules, the child will have a meltdown, because it seems like it's the end of the world, something that they can't control that they thought that they could control. You'll see a lot of fatigue from children. So it is not unlikely for a child to be very lethargic throughout the school day or even at home, whether they're getting sleep or not, because the nervous system is just exhausted from processing the transition and holding the anxiety, that the child just physically and mentally and emotionally sometimes just shut down and have a very, very hard time functioning throughout the day. So how to support when you're seeing some of these things. So instead of saying, stop that, another example, a more helpful example would be, I see you're having a hard time, let's take a break. So the idea here is to acknowledge your child having a hard time, to be in that moment, to connect with the child, and then to alter it and give them an option how to de-escalate that. A lot of times we tell children to calm down, relax. Those statements, as I had said, just heighten children. So we could try saying something along the lines of, let's take some belly breaths together. Let's look for shapes around the room. I love this one because it's called grounding, environmental grounding, I call it. You can have children look for colors around the room, shapes around the room. What that does, it calms, just like the belly breathing, it calms the nervous system so the child can bring it down just a notch and they can calm down on their own with you, with a little bit of help, without us escalating them. Because we all know when someone tells you to calm down or relax, it's just they're not able to do that. You're being bad. Children are not bad. They are not good. Children are just children. Their behaviors are healthy or unhealthy. We try not to judge them. So if a child is behaving in a way that we do not like, the better way to handle that would be, your body is telling us it needs something. Let's figure it out. This is one of my favorites because it doesn't blame the child. It doesn't shame them. And it also teaches the child that their body, their behavior is a communication. It's not something that will define who they are if they're good or bad. So it's very important to teach children to talk about their bodies and what's going on for them with their behavior. So I'm going to run through this quickly because I'm looking at the time, Christy. But so the preview the day. So again, I'm sure most of you do this. So just use more visuals and sensory tools throughout the day. Helps children with their transitions, especially if you know your child has anxiety with these transitions. Chew toys, the chew necklaces have been really helpful for a lot of the children that I work with. Weighted backpacks are really wonderful. There's so many different tools. First them boards, just to make it sensory oriented for the children. And this is all about regulating the nervous system so transitions are not as scary for them. Keep the routines the same as best as possible. When changing those routines, it's really good to have a quick, concise conversation with children. And more importantly, when you're telling them that there is a change in their routine, to let them know that they're safe and they can discuss how they feel about that. A lot of times if the children are not articulate and they do not have the words to talk about that, play is a great way of getting that out. We can play it out with them. Just rough and tumble kind of play, running around, jumping around, things like that work very, very well for children who aren't able to articulate their feelings. Stay regulated yourself. That's the number one. If we can't stay regulated, transitions are always going to be a nightmare for us. They're always going to be difficult for us. Because when we can stay regulated, then we can help our children regulate, which is called co-regulation, as I said. Okay, so I'm going to run through this a little bit because it's at 6:30. Your child isn't giving you a hard time. Please remember this, and they're having a hard time. So in that moment, try to keep thinking this is not about you. This is not to hurt you. It's not because you're not a great parent. All of you are. It's more about your child's just really struggling and they just need you to connect. Christy, I see we're at 6:30 and I know we have questions. So I don't know, do you want me to stop?
Let's pause for 2.5 seconds. Thank you so much, Robin. I know you give us so much great information. Let's check in with our interpretation lines, and then we can ask if there are a couple of questions as you move on.
Okay.
Interpreters, do we have anyone in any of our rooms with any questions for Robin Ann?
There are no questions on the Bangla line?
I didn't hear the questions on the Spanish line too.
No question from Mandarin line.
Alrighty, so for those of us who are in the room, do we have any? Actually, let me ask, do we have any parents in our interpretation rooms currently?
Not sure. I didn't hear anything on the Spanish line, so oh no.
Gabrielle, can you double check? Because if we don't have people in the rooms, we might be able to let our interpreters go. And so parents, while we're checking on that, do you guys have any questions for Robin Ann? You can unmute or raise your electronic hand or put it in the chat and we will recognize you.
Hi, my name is Marie Oyelami. I'm the D75 rep for District 12. I did want to ask a question about multiple meltdowns at the same time. Is what we experience in our household because we have 3 boys on the spectrum. And how would you say is the best way to handle those multiple meltdowns where they're feeding off of each other?
That's a wonderful question. And I give you credit because that's a tough one. So typically what I do is I always tell parents to put on soothing music. I love music. I think there's something wonderful about it. Just having the music on at a level that won't upset their nervous system because every child obviously is different. So that will be a little difficult with 3, but if you could put some soothing music on and then you yourself, this is where you come in. You're key to this. You start doing that breathing and letting them see that breathing and you narrate it for them. Again, the environment in the room has to be calm So if you can have the music on, music in general, if you can have water running in the background, if I don't know how heightened they are, but sometimes using ice packs really helps children on the back of their neck, on the back of their wrist, works beautifully to calm them down. I just don't know like the situation 100% if that would work. But music, and then also dancing. I don't know if your children like to dance, but dancing is a really good way, or just moving silly, being silly. That could calm the nervous system. And also it looks really different, right? Mom's dancing. What's mom doing? Why is that happening? It almost shoots them out of their dysregulation, at least even for a second, so you can maybe get one or two of their attentions and then help them bring them down a bit. Does that make sense?
Can I piggyback? Marie, do you
Please.
have a Echo Dot or an
Uh,
Alexa or something like that?
We do, it's a really strange. One thing that I don't have that, but one thing that does calm them down is I listen to NPR a lot. And
Yep,
so there's just something about that
the voice.
sound of those,
Hmm.
interviews that calms them down a lot. So I do think that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
You know what? Because I do it with my son. With the white noise, when he goes to
Hmm.
sleep, he needs to hear rain sounds. And maybe if it's something where everybody needs to calm down, I put some Janae Aiko on. I
Yep.
ask it for
Oh, yeah.
meditations. And I also agree with you. My son, sometimes instead of the white noise, he asks me for Harry Potter. And I'll have the guy read him the Harry Potter book for him to go to sleep. So you don't know what kind of works, but some of these electronics can really help us in those minutes where you can say, hey, turn on the white
Yes.
noise.
You're right, Christy. Excellent. And that's what is so great about, because you could do something different each time, right? And see what works for them as well. And the other thing, this is the key too. So not just doing it when they're dysregulated. We should be doing this all the time. So we have a baseline that's really low for the children and for us. So if you have this music or whatever really calms them down, whatever that noise is in the background, that sound, that will actually help the nervous system throughout the whole time. I know that's not realistic 24/7, but if you could do it more often throughout the day, that will also just calm their nervous system. Does that make
And
sense?
what do you think about this? I had a chill out corner, I called it. It's a COVID
Yep.
idea, but I would have blackout curtains in the room and I would make the room very desensitized except for the calming music. And we would sit in
Love
there with
that.
less sensory to try. And sometimes that helped out a lot too. So maybe that could help.
Absolutely. Excuse me. The lighting in the room makes a difference too, the temperature. Now that the winter's, upon us, believe it or not, I can't believe it, but that also cold temperatures sometimes just if you're able to, if it's safe only, obviously, opening the window, or if you can go outside a little bit, that really helps as well. The temperature changing helps with the music. All of this together, and that cozy space, Chrissy, I love that, 'cause I know you do that. I think it's fabulous. Does any of this sound doable?
Yeah,
Yes, I'm
these are
adding.
all really good ideas. These are things that actually they do like already. And I agree with,
Good.
having that in place in advance. Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, have it just be part of your day. I tell parents all the time because we need it too. So if it's just something that everyone's used to, there's just constant calm, right? And then if you're seeing that they're escalating to what Christy said, just you can say, Alexa, put something else on. And then just that change in the sound, it switches something in the nervous system. The temperature is a big one too. I've seen this so drastically. If you can open the window or even just get that ice pack out, ice cold water, it works beautifully. And that cozy space I love, because Christy, I know she does that. That really textures really help children too. Some children like rough, some children like soft. So if you can have like I always call it the toolkit, my calm down toolkit. If you can have that for each child, you could create it together when they're in their calm moments, and then you have a go-to also. Okay, hopefully that helps.
Also, before I forget, guys, look into the chat. And for those that are looking at this on the replay, you're already going to be in the right spot on our council's YouTube. I went maybe a year or two ago because I love meditations. I love music that helps calm us down. So we already have a channel that has meditation music, what to do
Wonderful.
with stress, a couple of different things that can help you meditatively. So I'm going to go and add some more white noise or things of that nature to see if that might be able to help if people need a quick button to click.
That's wonderful, Christy. That's amazing. Anybody else have any questions? I have some suggestions there also. Obviously, prioritize your self-care. So those parents, none of us do that, but you have to do that. In order for your children to feel calm, you have to feel calm. Communicating, set realistic goals. There's that grounding that we talked about. I'm gonna see if I can find it. This grounding is a great one. This is easier for guardians, for parents to do. But Christy, I had done this with everybody in the fall. I think it was the spring. But it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's just 5 sense grounding. This is another good thing to do. And sometimes we do this even when our children are tantruming and they're yelling and they're screaming. If you just narrate and you say, oh, I see 5 things, and you call out the 5 things that you see, and then you see 4 things I can touch, and you go around the room and you touch things. Children are going to get distracted by what you're doing, and that's another way to de-escalate them. And then they can join in and look for these sensing, and then it becomes a scavenger hunt almost. I love scavenger hunts. Those work really well too. When children are you see the cues that they're starting to get dysregulated, I quickly do a grounding technique. Everyone look for colors red in the house. Everyone look for something blue, something to circle, something obviously that they can find quickly. Something that you like to touch. There's lots of different ways you can distract and help the nervous system come down. Anybody else? No? Okay. So Christy, should I just keep going unless we have other questions? I don't want to keep people if they're ready to go.
I say let's finish out all of the information because this goes
Okay.
to people who couldn't be here tonight too, and a lot of people did register.
Okay.
So let's make sure we go through. And guys, please do know as you're listening to this, as you're here now with the links in the channel, if you're on YouTube.
Thank you, Christy. I lost you there.
That's because YouTube was about to walk us through a meditation. I forgot to press pause. But so guys, the meditations, the sound waves, and even the sessions that she's already done that have the breathing strategies, that have a lot of these different resources, they are on our website. I'm going to go ahead and add some of those to the channels as well, but they are there and available because we did one recently for the dads and we did one recently about stress and anxiety because we want to make sure we consistently keep these tools in front of you.
Good. Thank you so much, Christy. So I'm just like Christy said, I'm just going to run through the rest of these. So some sensory tools that work really, really well. These techniques, when appropriate, bear hugs. When we hug our children, it calms the nervous system. So if your child likes to be touched, and hugs work for your child, the more you do that, the more you're going to regulate that system, even when they're not heightened. And again, goes back to that baseline. If children don't like to be touched by somebody, compression vests, weighted vests, what my favorite is just wrap them in a blanket if they're comfortable with that. Children, you all know your children, you know what works best for them, but the deep pressure is very important for the nervous system. It definitely helps calm it and release the energy. Any oral output or input that your child is having, because this could go either way, chewy snacks, sucking on a straw. I'm sure all of you have all these ideas, but what the idea here is, and again, this is, there's different ideas. This is just a few. The idea is really to get to all the 5 senses of your child because all 5 senses are typically overloaded and we have to address each one in order for the escalation to subside. Calm down space, like Christy talked about, which I'm so glad, so I can move on to the next one. Practice coping before the storm. So this is what I was just talking about. Don't wait for those meltdowns. Don't wait for the transition anxiety. Start these toolboxes. Get your calm center, like, the calm corner, like Christy was talking about. Whatever calms your child. I do a calm scavenger hunt every few weeks with certain families. I say, okay, what's good? What can we put new in our calm toolbox? Again, the children like this idea, and then they know it's theirs and they can go to. And it's a nice connection opportunity for all of you. This is just my information. If you need any help, I can help any of you. Please contact me. Christy can put in the chat, or I can just put in the chat if you need it. I'm always there to help. And the best thing I can tell all of you is please just connect and to know that you're really wonderful. Because I think a lot of parents in the moment, they don't think that they're great parents because a child's having a meltdown. Your child's having a meltdown with you, it's probably because you are a great parent and you're safe. So a lot of times that's the only time their nervous system can release it. So just remember that in those moments and know that your child needs you to be calm in order to calm themselves down. Anybody, any questions?
Wonderful. Robin, let's check in with everybody. Parents, interpreters, do we have any additional questions for Robin? Please do know if you've registered and if you're attending today, you will get a copy of a link to the video and probably the extra links as well, in addition to the PDF so that you can have something tangible in front of you as well. So double checking, do we have any additional questions before we give you your time back? And Marie, if you ever need any help, I'm always here. I totally get it.
No dejaron decir. No question from the language line, Spanish language line.
All right. Do we have any other parents with any other feedback and or questions? If not, I'm going to wrap it up and say again, thank you. Mindful parenting matters. Robin Ann McConaughey. We will be seeing more of her throughout the year. She does wonderful work and support with us as always. And for our dads, you are not alone. We have you there too. So we will definitely be seeing you guys soon. Hopefully you get to press play, sign up for our YouTube and stay in touch with our workshops. At this point, it's 6:43 p.m. We will be releasing our interpreters and closing out our meeting. Everyone have a great restful night as much as you can, and know that you're not in this alone. We will see you guys soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Christy.
Good night.